Hello, my name is LoG, and welcome to part 2 of this chord inversion power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And now, let's get on to the lesson. All right, so let me just recap what we did last time. That was the C sharp minor 7 and all of the inversions with our picking pattern and our melody. That sounded like this. And we also play that with just kind of picking the chords, adding in the melody, just like that. And of course, you can also just play the chords static like this. Nothing wrong with that, perfectly fine. Today, we're going to go over another chord, but approach it in the same way, playing the same set of inversions with a little melody, but the chord type and the starting location is going to be different. So also, I'm not going to go through the process as meticulously as I did in the previous video, because I think you probably get the idea. So I'll just kind of show you the shapes. You know, you can practice them however you want, memorize the connections, and then move forward. So the chord that we're going to be going over today is going to be C instead of C sharp, so back a fret, C, and major 7. So the previous chord was minor 7. Today's major 7. So the interesting thing about this that's kind of important to note, even though the chord is different in its type, major 7 versus minor 7, the layout of the notes for every inversion that we play is going to be identical to the chord that we've already gone through. So for example, if I take a look at this chord, the order of the notes, the numbers of this chord, 1, 5, 7, 3, flat 7, flat 3, because we're playing minor 7. Right, now if I play this major 7 chord, back a fret, the root is a different location, the chord is a different type, but the number setup is exactly the same. Remember this one, 1, 5, 7, 3. Check out this one, 1, 5, 7, 3. It's exactly the same thing. The only difference is the 7 and the 3 are not flat like they were up here. This is 1, 5, flat 7, flat 3. This is 1, 5, normal 7, normal 3, because that's how you build a major 7 chord. And here's the other cool thing. Every inversion that we play is also going to be the same note structure. So if I move up to the second one of the first chord that we did in the last video, if you remember this one, this was third, 7th, root 5th, like that, 3, 7, 1, 5, or flat 3, flat 7, 1, and 5. If I play the major 7 version, here's our root in the bass. If I go to the third in the bass, looks like this. The structure is exactly the same. It's still 3, 7, 1, 5, except the 3 and the 7 are not flat like they were before. So the order of the numbers are exactly the same for all of these chords. The only difference is we're dealing with a different chord type. So keep that in mind, kind of makes things a little bit easier. So let's just run through what these chords are. The first one we're going to play down here, that standard major 7 shape that you probably already know, very common figure, very easy to play, very standard. This one is simply 1, 5, normal 7, normal 3. So if you want to think about an easy way, think about this standard bar chord like this. That's our normal 1, 5, 1, 3, right? C, G, C, E. And all we're doing is adding 7 to this chord. Where is 7? Always back 1 fret from the root. So here's a root right there, pulling it back a fret, adding that note. Of course, if we wanted to do this also, here's our root here, move that back a fret. That is also major 7, but remember, that's not the point here. The point is to play all of these inversions, and we want to play this shape with 1 in the bass. That's how we want to start it. So we'll pop the 7 up top right there. 1, 5, 7, 3, or C, G, B natural, and then E natural like that. That's our first chord. So as we move on to the next chord, it's going to be the same process, right? We just move each note up to its next chord tone. The root down here is going to move to the 3, which is right there. The 5 right here is going to move to the 7, which is right there. The 7 here is going to move to the 1, which is up a fret. The 3 right here is going to move to the 5, which is right here. Remember, the distances aren't going to be exactly the same as the minors that we did earlier, but the process is still exactly the same. Just have to know the distance between those notes. So if I form that whole chord, I need to play this note, right? Because 1 to 3. I need to play this note 5 to 7, so 3, 7. I need to play this note 7 to 1, so 3, 5, or 3, 7, 1, like that. And then I need to play this note 3 to 5, so 3, 7, 1, 5. A bit of a stretch, but pretty possible. Looks like this, right? If I kind of play the chord a little bit. Very, very classic chord. A really common way to play this chord is in the open position. So you're kind of doing this, pointer, pinky, open G, right? And then the B string. Very common chord. So that's what we're playing right here, just a movable version of it. So C major 7, 1 in the bass, walk to the 3, play Play this figure right here. But again, a little stretchy, but not too bad once you get it. Middle finger, pinky, pointer way back here, ring finger right here. The one thing you do have to make sure you're practicing with this chord is making sure your pinky is not accidentally hitting that G string. It's pretty easy to do that. If you're flattening your pinky too much, you'll get a dead note. So make sure that pinky is up on the fingertip as much as possible so you clear the string. And you have the chord. Then the next process, if you remember like we did last time, is we move to the fifth in the bass. So 1, 3, 5 in the bass. And this shape would be 5, 1, 3, 7. Just like the C sharp minor was. If you remember this one, this was 5, 1, flat 3, flat 7. Now we're just playing 5, 1, normal 3, normal 7 on C. So that chord looks like this. That's what it would look like on the A string, but we are not going to play it right here. We're going to play it on the D string just like we did the previous minor 7 shapes from the last video. So where would that be? This is the fifth right here. We're just going to play the same chord, but right here. How did I find that note so quickly? Because I know I'm on 5. If this is my 1, right, my C major 7, I know that's 5. So I'm just going to build the chord right here. What was the order? 5, 1, 3, 7, right? It's going to be the same thing right here. 5, 1, 3, 7. Really easy. That's kind of like the standard C major chord, but you're just playing the bar notes right here, the 5, 1, 3, the G, C, E, and then adding in this top B right there. That's very, very common chord, very kind of standard major 7 shape. So let's play all of those. Root in the bass, third in the bass, kind of stretchy. Fifth in the bass is going to start right there, so kind of right where my pointer finger already is, makes it nice and easy to connect. Bar that, pinky or ring finger right here. That's your major 7, okay? Next shape is going to be a little bit more tense sounding than the minor 7 version because of the nature of the chord, which we'll go over here in a second. So if you remember, the minor 7 chord with 7 in the bass looked like this. It was just that like stacked sound, flat 7, flat 3, 5, 1. That's what we played last time. Now the chord's gonna look like this. 5 in the bass, major 7, root, third, fifth in the bass, right? So now where's the next note going to be? The 7 in the bass, which is where? 5, 6, 7. So the chord's going to be formed right here. If you remember, the C sharp minor 7 was 7, 3, 5, 1. It's going to be the same thing right here, except we're now dealing with different notes. Normal 7, normal 3, 5, 1. If I play this chord, it's going to be kind of tense. That's the sound though. 7, 3, 5, 1. If you want to think about it in an easier way, here's this chord. That's like almost like the vanilla kind of F chord that most people learn in the beginning. This is just straight up C major 1, 3, 5, 1. All we're doing is we're taking the 1 right here, moving it back a fret to the 7. And we get that. This is a little odd because it depends on your ear. Of course, you might hear this chord and think it sounds really perfect. But this one, most people will hear this as a little strange because most of the time when you play major 7, the 7 is located higher up in the chord. But right now it's the opposite. The 7 is the lowest note and the root is the highest note, which is the opposite of what it usually is. Usually people will play this. Right, that's major 7, 1, 3, 5, 7. So the 1 is the lowest note and the 7 is the top note. This is the opposite. The 7 is the lowest note, the 1 is the highest note, so it kind of gives it this kind of different flavor. It depends on your ear, though. Some people do prefer this sound over this one. Just completely depends on your ear. But for our purposes, this will be the chord that we want to play because this is the inversion with the 7 in the bass, which is the whole point of this series. So far, root in the bass, standard major 7, pointer, ring, middle, pinky, just like that, 4 middle strings. Stretchy version, 3 in the bass, middle, pinky, pointer, ring, same 4 middle strings. Again, try to remember or memorize the numbers of the chord, 3, 7, 1, 5, right? Very, very nice chord, classic chord. Then we have 5 in the bass, really easy, bar, 5, 1, 3, and then pinky or ring finger right there for the 7, right? It's one of my favorite chords for doing this stuff. I'm gonna go on a different pickup here. Turn up a little bit. Right, that kind of sounds perfect for this little shape if you want to mess around with that sound. Very cool. So from here, now we have the 7 in the bass right here, right? 7, 3, 5, 1. Kind of an odd shape. Kind of feels like an A minor, but you bar, right? So imagine playing an A minor here and barring. So when you do that, if I did it right here, that's actually an F major 7 with the root on top and the 7 in the bass. Kind of odd. But yeah, that's what it feels like. A minor, but bar. And then we'll finish up with another root position major 7, which if this is the 7, which we know it is, 1, 3, 5, 7, the next chord's going to be up a fret, and we simply play the exact same note order as we did down here. 1, 5, 7, 3. 1, 5, 7, 3. Looks different because of the tuning of the guitar, but actually a pretty easy chord. It kind of just feels like a standard major chord, but on the D string. So pointer and then bar with the ring finger gives you the 5, 7, and 3. That's the shape. Really nice. That's a really easy chord to play. You can do it with pointer, ring finger bar, or pinky. Kind of up to you, whatever's comfortable. It's kind of nice also to practice this maybe with fingers instead of barring. Gives you sounds like that. That's with a 2 on top. Kind of cool. So recap all those chords. Normal root position. 3rd in the bass. 5th in the bass. On the D string down. 7 in the bass. Root in the bass. And then we're going to go backwards. Again, practice these like a scale with a metronome, with a drum track, whatever you want to do. Jump between the difficult ones. Like if this one's uncomfortable for you to get to, just practice it over and over again, jumping from here to there. Next one. That one's pretty easy, actually. Next. Jump to whatever order you want. That's kind of how I practice this stuff. Maybe, again, do picking pattern, whatever you want to do to add in some technical variety to practicing these, completely up to you. And like we did in the last lesson, we're also going to add in a little melody to these chords as well, kind of what I mentioned earlier. You don't want to just play a chord and say, cool, I've got a chord, let's move on. You always want to say, okay, well, what can I do to this chord to add some extra variety to it? And the best way to do that is to know the notes that are in the physical chord that you are playing and know the notes nearby that you can add. So for example, I know this is 1, 5, 7, 3. So I know right next to 3 is 2, back a whole step. So I can lift my pinky, bar, and now I get this, right? That's 1, 5, 7, 2. Pretty cool sounding chord. Maybe do like a little hammer on like that. I know I can do that hammer on because I know what those notes are, the 2 and the 3. Same thing here. If I'm playing, this is a really common one. If I play this chord, that major 7, I know that's 7 up top, so I can move up a fret to 1, or I can lift it up and play 6, also a viable note, right? Or I can go like this. What did I do there? I added, instead of playing 1, instead of going 5, 1, 3, 7, I'm playing 5, 2, 1, 2, just up a whole step. Get a nice different chord. And you might say, hey, wait a minute, there's no root in this chord. You're correct, but you can use this chord assuming that there's a root happening. So maybe the bass line is playing the C somewhere else, or maybe you can sing the C like bum. Lots of stuff you can do, whatever you want, as long as you know where this chord is coming from and you know where it works. So with that in mind, let's now get on to the melody that we're going to add to these chords, just like we did in the previous one. All right, so the approach here is going to be exactly the same as the C sharp minor 7 that we talked about in the previous video, except we have a different melody and, of course, different chord shapes. So let's go over what all of that is. First chord, exactly the same thing, just nothing added, just the plain chord. The second chord is going to be the 3rd in the bass, the kind of stretchy one. We're also going to add in the high E string underneath the pointer finger. So we're just grabbing this note right there. That's the A up top. So that'd be like the 6 of the chord if you want to think about it like that. That's our little melody note. Similar to what we were doing in the previous video where we were playing the chord and then adding a high E string note. That was my pinky breaking in half, that chord. This is the same idea, except we're just adding in a different fret, still on the high E string though. Again, barring right there, grabbing that high E string with the underside of my pointer finger. Next chord, the normal 5 in the bass. Nothing different about this one. The next chord, the 7 in the bass, is actually going to start with a different note. So this is the normal chord right here. Right, 7, 3, 5, 1, except I'm starting with my pinky down. So that's actually a 2 on top. I play the chord and then lift the pinky playing the normal chord. So that's my little melody right there. Then the final normal root position inversion up top, nothing different about it, just the normal chord. Cut back to the 7 in the bass shape, and we start with the normal shape, kind of the opposite of what we just did. Normal shape, then add the pinky, then normal 5 in the bass. Then repeat the exact same melody we did with this stretchy 3rd in the bass chord. Hit the chord, grab the high E string, back to the root. So I'll do that really slow. Normal. Next one, grab the high E string under the pointer finger. Next one, normal. Next one, start with the pinky down, lift. Next one, normal. Go back, normal, then add the pinky. then normal chord. Same thing here, stretchy chord, add in that top high E string. Back to the beginning. So the melody should sound like this. You want to be able to hear this as you play. So, bum, 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 bum. You want to be able to hear all of those notes as you're playing it. If you want that melody, of course, you don't necessarily have to play this stuff. You can just play the chords like normal, and it should sound fine. So that's what we're doing, and half of the playthrough, that's what I'm going to do. Just simply play the chord like a hit, and then add the melody as it comes in. Also, I don't know if I talked about this in the last video, but you can strum just like normal, or excuse me. You can do that, that's fine. Or you can do what I'm probably doing most of the time, which is picking fingers. So instead of strumming the chord, I'm going to pick the thick string, and then the rest I'm going to use with my fingers. So that's pick, middle, ring, pinky when I'm playing all 4 of those strings. So pick, middle, ring, pinky. Just like that. Same thing here. Same thing here, just dropping down a set of strings, moving forward. Like that, exactly the same way as I did in the previous video. The picking pattern that I'm also going to do half the time is also the exact same thing. Nothing is changing. I'll play that ring finger at the same time as my pick note to start the melody and move through the pattern, with my picking pattern always being pick, pick, middle, pick. That's the first chord, next chord, etc., all the way up. And I'm grabbing that high E string with my ring finger, so it starts like this. First one, I'll turn this way so you can see. Starts like this, right? Top note, melody, and pick at the same time, walk up the pattern and back. Next chord, I do the same thing, except I also move that ring finger down a string when I want to play that melody, and it always happens at the same time as I'm using my middle finger. So there they are at the same time, right? If you want to just play that over and over again to get it comfortable, kind of a cool sounding chord. So first one, normal. Second one with that little additional note, excuse me. Next one, normal. Next one with the little additional note, which means the ring and middle fingers on my right hand are going to be picking at the same time. Bam, right there. Next one, normal. Same thing. I pick it at the same time. Next one, normal. Same thing here. Right? And then back to the beginning. Same exact pattern. So if you're already doing the pattern from the first video and you're already comfortable with it and you already want to play it and you're playing it fine, apply it right here. It's going to be the exact same thing. So we're going to play over 2 backing tracks right here. The first backing track is going to be literally what I just played, C major 7s all the way up with the pattern. And the second one is going to be C sharp minor 7, the chord we did in the previous video, and then C major 7. So that'll look like this. C sharp minor 7, same exact thing as we did in the previous video. All the way up. And then right to C major 7. We're not going to finish, we're jumping right to it. Same thing. Right back to C minor 7, right? So we're going to repeat those over and over again. That will be the second track. So let's now get on to these tracks. Again, the first one, just C major 7. Second one, C sharp minor 7, C major 7, back and forth. right, that does it for part 2 of this chord inversion power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and I'll see you all in part 3.